And then, when I was about 14, I went to visit one of our relatives in California, and they were driving a 53 Chrysler, two-door hardtop. Oh, that was so cool. And it had chrome wire wheels, and it was bronze and tan, two-tone, and leather interior. Oh, that was the coolest car. And then 20 years later, my dad finally talked our relatives out of that car. It had sat forever, and now it's my car. He gave it to me, brought it and gave it to me 20 years later. My mother and dad did. Of course, my dad did all the work, but of course my mother was involved too, of course. But now I still drive that car. I've driven that car for 40 years. And it has new paint. Well, it's the second time we painted it. We painted it twice. And I love that car. I really enjoy it. I was driving it today. It has new upholstery in it. It has paint that's 25 years old. It has spots on the paint where I scuffed it myself.
Okay, so what is the 50s lifestyle to you?
Okay, 50s lifestyle to me. Well, I'll start off with maybe telling a story from the 50s. I wasn't alive then, of course, but my grandpa was. And man, he had a lot of cool stories. In general, to me, the 50s was about kids, you know, getting into hot rods and just having fun. And a lot of the culture in the 50s, well, kids were broke, just kind of like how it has came about today. You work with what you've got. You go to the junkyard, you get a motor, you get a body, a shell, and you go on your budget. You use to your ability what you can, what's out of worth of your pocket. Because, you know, I'm not rich and neither were they. So they would take, you know, like an older 20s Model A back then, and they might put a 32 Ford flathead in it or something of that, we'll say per se, or maybe an Oldsmobile rocket engine, and they would soup it up. But they would all do it on a budget. They'd use a rear end from maybe a 47 Ford, we'll say, you know, they would put it together, and that would be a hot rod, and a lot of people would call it rat rods. Well, now today, it's funny how fads come about from accident. Rat rods were not cool. It's a very big diss to tell someone they had a rat rod. Well, a rat rod kind of is like a primered or rusted rod. Again, they couldn't afford a paint job, you know, so they just had a primer rod. But it's a hot rod, you know. They didn't like it being called rat rod. And also in the 50s, people were kind of poor, so they would buy their kids longer pants that they'd grow into. And so it came about them cuffing their jeans up. And it wasn't cool then, but you know, they were poor, so they had to have longer pants to grow into. But now it's a fad, and it's part of like the dress of the lifestyle, the culture of the 50s.
Did to this car?
Okay, to this car, this stock, this is a 50 Dodge Coronet. This windshield frame was probably 7 inches taller. If I remember, I took 7 inches, and you call this area an A-pillar. You have A-pillar, B-pillar, and the C-pillar. The C-pillar is basically your rear window. So what I did is I cut the roof off because I wanted to make this into a convertible, or also known as a roadster, and to where you just have you know, no side windows, just your windshield. 50s terminologies, roadster or convertible, either or. I took the frame and I lowered it down 7 inches. You'll cut a piece out here that's 7 inches out of your A pillars. And now you can see I have 2 welds here. These are just basically a relief cut. You pie in the bottom pillar and pie out the top pillar, and you align them together to bring back the structure of this frame. So that's chopping a top. You brought this down, and from here I have capped all the doors off. This is a 4-door car, and I'm going to continue into where the C-pillar area is. That deck right there is called your package tray. I'm going to lay that all in smooth as well, and eventually it will have upholstery on the back end of it. And then these doors, I'm going to paint the whole car green, kind of like a candy apple green. And then the back end of it, I have notched the frame rails up 6 inches. It is going to have airbag suspension in the back where the car lays down flat if you want to, and you pick it up. Basically, you know, you might put airbags on a car for aesthetics, just to have it parked, to have that cool, low, pristine sled look, you know. That's what everybody likes. They like the car to look low. It looks mean. You're altering the vehicle. You're making a character of maybe per se myself. Of what I see is, you know, a person. It's my statement. It's my vision. Every person has a different vision, a different characteristic to them. Everyone's taste is different. That's what makes it fun.